We've had a few discussions, and probably over the course of the last couple of years, we've touched on it many, many times. What I'm going to sort of lead us into. On our next Zoom, we have, I think we're going to try and focus on that stage in practice when you're getting towards the end, when you've had those touches, you've had the insights, you've had the experiences. They come and they go, and they can be deep and profound. Um, and people say, but then they're sort of gone. Um, and um, so I want to, so several people have said they're really excited if we have a conversation that sort of takes people who are very experienced practitioners. We understand where they are, you understand where they are, and what some approaches to the final um, the final push or whatever. So what I have done is I have listed some words to stimulate your thinking. And I'm going to say those words, and they're like, two words that one might be before and one might be after, or who knows, you know. But you know, for instance, we had said that one of the impediments is maintaining that sense of effort or seekingness that we you don't give up. You touch this, but you don't give up that still wanting more. Or, what anyway, I don't know how to exactly to say
I
it. So
understand.
I'm going to throw out these words and I'm going to let you sort of talk about them. Um,
So, is that the first prompt? Or
no,
we're pinging the ocean of consciousness, and we'll see what's out there, like a submarine, activating its sonar.
yeah, beep, 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 beep. Okay. The first one is cleverness versus naturalness.
Yeah, you will never cleverness yourself into this. I think that is uh, that's a given. You won't think yourself into across the threshold. In fact, see the thing is the the closer you get, and you're suggesting this question is for people who are far along on the path, the closer you get, the less possible it is to do anything. There's almost like and people feel this, by the way. They feel the barrier as they approach, and like um, effort per outcome starts to go on a logarithmic scale. Suddenly it's going straight up and you can't do anything. Like no matter how much effort you put forward, it seems to um, retard your progress rather than advance it, you know? And people feel that, I think, as they get close. I've been practicing for so many years. I've had many, many insights, but no matter how hard I try to cross this final threshold, um, I I am pushed back or find it impossible. Um, and so, in many ways, this question that you're posing is one of the fundamental difficulties of the spiritual path. Is there just comes a point where there's nothing you can do. And this is the point where um, surrender has to happen. And there's nothing I can do about it for anyone, and there's nothing they can do about it for themselves either. And so, um, but you know, I think, and maybe this is something, okay, that as I've said in the past, this surrender is maybe more likely to happen if you have exhausted all other possibilities. If you've if you keep trying, it's like you have to, not your mind, but deeper, you have to be completely convinced that there's nothing you can do.
Right.
And it's not enough to just tell somebody that there's nothing you can do, that they, even if they believed it, right? Even I understand that and I believe it, but that's not deep enough. Somehow they have to absolutely come to the end of the possibilities that they have imagined for themselves, what I describe as the karmic chains, the possibilities that they have imagined for themselves that could make them happy or could work as far as achieving what they want to achieve. And only when all those exhausts are actually burnt out will this surrender happen, because otherwise the person will, somewhere deep inside their mind, their individual mind, they will hold out some hope that they can achieve it themselves, that they can do it for themselves, that they just haven't found the right thought yet, or the right place to push, the right form of effort. And if they did find the right thought, the right concept, the right state of mind, the right state of the body, the right idea, that they would be able to push through that.
So I think maybe you've addressed every one of my little polarities here, but I'm going to go back to this
That's
one.
all right. We could go on because it might,
Yeah, yeah, we'll
we
go
might
on.
discover other subs out there.
Yeah. So the word I used was clever, and I think the other one was naturalness.
I
Um,
didn't really talk about that, but yeah.
yes. So I want to go. Let's go back to clever because, in some sense, we we hold on to that sense that I'm competent, clever enough to discover my way to this profound realization. We have this um, innate, inflated sense of our own capacity.
Yeah.
Uh,
Even it can go the other way too, by the way. When I was in my 20s, I came to the conclusion that um, I was reading books about Zen, and was very intrigued by this, whatever it was that these Zen people had seemed to have figured out. Um, and I puzzled over it, and I sort of subconsciously came to the conclusion that, look, I'm a really smart person. If I can't figure it out, it must not be real.
right.
That's real a kind of intellectual arrogance, right? Right. So
Yeah. So that's that. Yeah. That's intellectual arrogance, um, and it's sort of um, for a while, I'm sure that was a distraction in your path and practice.
it was,
Is
but I'll tell you what happened, and it's very interesting because um I now, I often say our whole lives are our spiritual path exactly as they are.
right.
And so what happened was, if you had asked me in the years following that, are you on a spiritual path? I might have said no, at least at certain points. But what happens is that the spiritual path gets channeled into other efforts. So, when I'm 20, I thought this Zen thing sounds pretty interesting. Um, if I were to realize what these guys had realized, that would be something special. I would be something special, and also perhaps I would know something extraordinary, and I would be happy about that. That's kind of the idea that I would be happy about knowing something extraordinary. Um, and so that's the idea that I had. See, it was all about, you know, it was all sort of egotistical, really. Like, how can I
Right.
satisfy myself? How can I achieve happiness, achieve success, make something of myself, and do something worthwhile with my life? So, but when I concluded, oh, this must not be real because I can't figure it out. And apparently, no one can figure it out. And so I thought it must not be real. And so I, kind of like went on with my life, so to speak. But what happens is you start seeking the same exact things by different means. You start looking for the perfect relationship or the perfect career, or um, you start trying to find happiness, satisfaction, um, and making something of yourself in by different means. So the general motivation that put you on the spiritual path just gets channeled into these other things, and in a way, those become your practice. Those become your path. So so for me, for a significant portion of my path, two of my primary practices were writing fiction and practicing martial arts, because those were the things I had channeled my efforts in to think I will make myself happy this way.
Mm.
And by achieving these things or discovering these things or becoming good at these things. And the same is true with uh, romantic relationships, and also religion. I followed religion for a while as well, and that kind of came and went throughout my path. But you see how when the overt spiritual path subsides for one reason or another, it just gets channeled into other things. The person is still seeking.
Okay, so what you were going to say something about naturalness as the antidote to cleverness.
Yeah, yeah. Um, well, this is a big question. It's kind of like Alan Watts used to talk about Zen, and he would say about the what is the fundamental problem of trying to answer a koan, a Zen koan. And he said, it's as if somebody asked you to be absolutely authentic, 100% natural. And he said, how are you going to do it? As soon as you try, it's fabricated.
Or it's impossible not to be natural.
Yes, well, this is the realization or maybe that's pushing towards. But uh, even if you allow for it's impossible not to be natural, there's still something beyond just understanding that intellectually,
Yeah,
because you can see real realization that it's impossible not to be natural, um, goes further than just somebody deciding that that is the case, and therefore uh, not making any effort to do anything differently. And that person may still be a very contrived person, you know.
right.
And so they haven't they may have they've adopted an idea, but they haven't really liberated themselves from that contrivance. So there's something more there. And I encountered this in martial arts like this. Um, I was studying Aikido for many years, 20 years, 25 years. And I was constantly, the way that training works in Aikido is there's a syllabus of techniques. And the techniques involve certain movements, and you practice them in the context of certain attacks. It's very formalized. There's a particular attack, and then there's a particular movement, and this is the basic practice with two people, right? One person attacks, the other person performs the technique. And it's very formalized, but that performing the technique is not really what Aikido is. It's not a collection of techniques. Um, it is, if you read the writings of the founder of Aikido, Sensei, it is not a collection of techniques, and he didn't really teach that way either. When he was teaching, he taught spontaneously, and the generation of movement was spontaneous, and it was only later that they codified all these techniques and said practice these in order to learn Aikido. So
Mm,
so anybody who's training Aikido has this fundamental question, like a Zen koan: what is Aikido? We're doing these techniques, but what bridges that gap between performing a technique from rote memorization to Aikido, which, Aiki means uh, the harmony of energy, the harmony of spirit, harmony of the universe. You are,
mm,
uh, it's presented as a spiritual path. That's how O-sensei presented Aikido. And so you're confronted with this: how do I do Aikido? Even though you've been shown all these techniques. And so for years and years and years, I struggled with that. And because of this teaching structure, it's very hard to learn spontaneous actions, spontaneous generation of technique. Um, it's very hard to learn naturalness,
yes.
and so um, I was looking for that, for naturalness, and so I started exploring other martial arts to see if there was maybe a different training methodology that could help discover that. And that's, when I was studying Sistema, their approach is exactly the opposite. Instead of giving forms with rote memorization in order to hopefully realize spontaneous harmony later, right? There are no forms, no memorization, just principles like good posture, continuous breathing, continuous movement, uh, relaxation, just principles. And then a lot of drills to see how these principles can lead to effective spontaneous action. So everything is spontaneous right from the get-go. It's not necessarily good, but it's spontaneous, And so you have sort of the opposite problem. But in Sistema, they talk a lot about, when they talk about posture, for example, the ideal is what they call natural form. What is the natural form of a human being? And so there's a lot of discussion about that. What is relaxation? You know, um, and so there's a big exploration of natural form and being natural. And I would say, if I could give one pointer along those lines about how to be natural, it is like neutral. For example, natural posture is just standing there with good posture, straight up. Everything is relaxed. You can move in any direction. There's no bias towards anything, nor are you fixated on anything. It's like, see, this is true in stories of Japanese sword masters as well. There's um, there's a famous story about I'm trying to remember how this story goes. There's a famous story, I think, about a guy who had no experience with with a sword at all, but he had to fight in a duel, and he consulted, a sword master. What should I do? I'm gonna die. And the master instructed him to just stand there, completely neutral. Don't hope for victory. Don't fear defeat. That's all. And that's all he focused on was just do that. And when he appeared before the duel, he just stood there. Apparently, he was able to achieve this state where he didn't fear uh, dying and didn't hope for victory either, and he just stood there, not didn't take any particular stance, didn't guard any particular part of his body. He just stood there. And the other swordsman who was fighting a duel, looked, he drew his sword, readied himself, looked at this guy, and then put away his sword and walked away. And the moral of this is, see, by doing that, you leave no opening. If I guard myself here, there's an opening here. If I guard myself low, there's an opening high. If I guard myself high, there's an opening low. If I put my attention over here, I have no attention there. If I'm vigilant over here, I'm negligent over here. See, so any way you put your attention, any way you try to focus yourself or favor one thing over another thing, actually opens you up for, in the martial context, to be defeated. So, and you see, the other swordsman recognized that. He saw this person standing here and thought, there's no openings. This guy must be really good. I don't want to die, so I'm going away.
Ah. Okay, let's get out of the martial arts. Let's say that someone, perhaps like me, who thinks they're very clever, um, asks you, you know, you've talked about this spontaneous naturalness. In my meditation, what would be a practice? What would be a direction? What would be a hint to push me from, I try to do the posture and the breathing. Um,
um, yeah, see, I know you said get out of martial arts, but I have already given you the answer. See, this is the same question. How do I how do I not die? And so the answer is you can't do anything. Don't put your efforts anywhere toward any particular thing. As soon as you put your efforts towards something particular, you will imagine something particular, and there your attention will go.
okay, perfect answer. Do you have more to say about that? I get
No,
that.
if it's perfect, I'll just stop there. But
Okay,
you see what I'm saying, right?
I get it completely, yes.
And how it relates to the story, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. For those of us who are in a more befuddled state, like me, understanding martial arts lessons are harder.
Yeah, no, I understand it's a whole, like it's a whole like vocabulary of stories and things like that. So
Yeah, and a whole world of it's like a doctor explaining surgery to me.
yes, that is also true. Yeah, if you have no experience in martial arts, some of these concepts won't make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the second, and I have a bunch of these, so we're probably not going to get through them all, but um and so but they're all the same in many ways. And
Yeah,
I as
yeah, of
soon
course.
as
And
I
that's fine. That's how this whole thing is.
yes. So this one was seeking versus relaxing, which your relaxing was how you answered the last one.
Yeah, but opposing it with seeking is gives it a different flavor,
Yeah.
sort of. So relaxing is a very important, I will say, and also I told you I was writing a book now about meditation, and the first step, the first, there's like 8 practices. The first one is relaxation. Uh, so it is foundational, and in a lot of ways, it is the beginning and the end of, and because relaxation is very simple. It's just letting go. Um, physically, it can take work, but uh, the the essence of it is very simple. It's just letting go, relaxing, relax the mind, relax the body. It's like falling asleep, you know. It's very simple. It just happens. The trick is to be able to fall asleep while remaining aware, to relax without falling asleep. But yeah, as soon as anybody is given some instructions for meditation, they imagine a goal, whatever their projected goal is, or just for example, they have some imagined view of what enlightenment is, and they think I'm working towards that goal. Understand the nature of reality, understand the nature of the self, understand the meaning of life.
Right.
We imagine all these goals and we put them out there, and we imagine our meditation is to discover that. Um, and that just that adds tension to the mind because we've created this distance and this lack. I don't have it. I don't understand it.
Mm,
I, I even hear, people, I'm not good enough, not worthy. So there's some lack here and there's some desired thing over there. And that creates a kind of tension. And so as long as even like, you know, even if you're very far advanced on the path and have had many insights, as long as you continue to project this goal out ahead of you, this tension will remain. And so relaxation, of course, at this point, we're not talking about relaxation of the physical body, nor of just relaxing your, the stress from your day or the emotions that are the context or background to your life, but instead you're relaxing the tension that is your seeking.
right.
And only when that tension collapses, when you let go of that, then this projected thing out there and this presumed lack in here uh, uh, disappear or come together and are fulfilled in a way.
So for someone who recognizes that tension, what would be a method of releasing it?
Well, like I said earlier, the the what what ends up working is really seeing that nothing will work. There is no method because this distance isn't real. You're not really lacking anything. And what you imagine to be out there in the future is actually present. There is no future. There is no out there. There is no future. Everything is in your imagination. You're imagining that it's out there. You're imagining the future in which you might realize it. So nothing will work. So the question is how do you realize nothing will work? And so one answer methodology is try even harder. Try as hard as you possibly can. Throw yourself into your practice. Exhaust every possibility until you collapse in a sense of utter and complete failure. And then you're ripe to see that you're in a place where you might recognize spontaneously that which is ever present and see that it was never far off. All that was imagined. But this is starting to get to the place where there's not much that a person can do. Of
Right.
course, it's helpful to know that this is an obstacle. The other thing that you could maybe do keep practicing, but give up all hope. All striving, all
expectations.
All expectations. Yes. Yes. So this is, in a way, both of these things combined is what works. You have to exhaust all the possibilities, and then you have to proceed forward by giving up those things which are sustaining that seeking. That those aspects of yourself which create that tension, which is hope, expectation, anticipation, desire. All of these things combined create this, and of course, imagination of what is not present.
Right.
We project and imagine what isn't, what we don't understand or what isn't present. Give up imagining something far off and try to see what's right in front of your eyes. Just be present with what is present. The teachings tell us the truth is ever present, so just be present. So yeah, that's what I would say would be the course of practice, and I'll tell you how this manifested in my life. So I got to a place where I felt like I had my ambition dwindled out because I saw that wasn't going to make me happy. And I was teaching in the martial arts, but I had no ambition for myself. I only continued because I had students and because it was, it was fun, it was physical, but I wasn't trying to get better anymore, and I didn't have any hope of attaining some level of skill or something like that. I
So you
just
weren't
was
going for a black belt or anything.
well, I mean, the martial arts trainers, there's no ranks or anything like that,
Uh,
but I wasn't striving for greater and greater and greater levels of skill. In part because you see this when this is never ending.
right.
You could become better and better and better and better and better, finer and finer and finer and finer. How, you could always grind the stone smoother, so you essentially, when you see that it's endless, what you're seeing is that if I project my goal outward, that situation will always be there. No matter how good you get, no matter how many insights you have, if this is your situation, you will always be projecting the goal somewhere else. You will imagine that it's far off. And that situation can go on your entire life. And so but once you see that's endless, that is it's not, you see that it's not what you thought it was, which was there is an actual thing out there to discover. You see it's just an imaginary situation that you have set up. And as long as you are in the habit of doing that, projecting outward into the future like that, there's no end to it.
Yeah, you had there's three parts that I think you mentioned. One is strive really hard until you recognize it's a failure. Striving is a failure. Two is keep practicing but give up any hope. The third one was was more of recognition. It's like seeing through your thoughts that are binding you. And that
Yes, yeah,
there's some freedom um, that you can just all of a sudden say, oh, I could try to get better at flipping people over my shoulder for the rest of my life.
right. It's never going to make you a happier. It's never,
And,
it's
and
never
there'll
gonna,
always be someone who flips me instead of
that's
me.
right. That's right. Exactly. See, you understand the martial arts perfectly.
Yeah. Okay, so here's the next two words. Attachment versus openness. And attachment here, it could be to objects, but I was thinking more like like the inner attachments to beliefs or
Those are objects. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's just not my attachment to my gold watch or something.
Right. Right. Yeah. Um, Attachments versus openness. Um, yeah, these are, the fundamental difficulty here is cannot be understated because and to illustrate that, I would like to suggest what are you if not your attachments?
That's an interesting question. I'm an entangled bundle of thoughts.
Right. And the attachment to the thought that you are the thinker of those thoughts.
That's right.
And so that's why I say the fundamental difficulty here is goes very deep. Like you said, it's not just attachment to your gold watch, of course not. But it's also attachment to your worldview, your
Yeah.
view of life and death, your view of how you think the world works, your view of the past and future. And at the heart of it is your view of what you think you are. And if you give up your attachment to that, you even if you just contemplate it, you start to see, well, what would I be then?
I think views, when I'm listening to you, views also then lead to predictions and expectations,
Oh, of course, of course.
which are
Yeah,
not open.
all that stuff is intertwined. Your whole
Yeah,
world is a view, including and that includes the entire your entire universe and you as the viewer, as the subject of that, the viewer of that universe. And so that all of that is a view,
yeah.
and we are attached to it, attached to ourselves as the protagonist in our own story, in our own movie, so to speak.
Okay, openness.
True openness is to see that there is absolutely nothing you can hang on to, including any view. Whatever you try to fix in place uh, cannot really be fixed in place. You can fool yourself into thinking that it's fixed in place, but it's not. And so the desire to fix things in place is essentially attachment. And openness is allowing for uh, reality to reveal itself as uh, a phantasmagoria of impermanence, to use the word we were talking about the other night, that nothing is fixed in place. Everything is constantly in motion. Um, Nothing can be pinned down or defined. Uh, or another way of putting it is there are no objects, there are no things, um, there are no individual um, beings.
This leads us to the next one, knowledge versus knowing.
Yeah, well, this is easy, particularly because of the previous question.
Exactly.
Knowledge pertains to things you have fixed in place or think you've fixed in place. And the pursuit of that type of knowledge or the accumulation of that type of knowledge is the accumulation of knowledge about various things, which you view as fixed, defined, solid.
Facts.
Yes, with independent existence, to put it into
Yeah.
Buddhist terms, you know. Um, and knowing is in this context pertains to emptiness.
Yes.
It is knowing without an object. It, even a subject. It is essentially knowing that knowledge is um, an illusion.
So knowing is abandoning knowledge.
In this context, yes,
Yeah.
yes, yes. And this is why, um, mystics will say things like, "What you call knowledge, I call ignorance,
Yeah.
and what you call ignorance, I call true wisdom." It's pointing out that difference, the difference between knowledge about things and uh, knowing emptiness, knowing nothing.
Beautiful. Okay. We probably might get through all of these. I like this one. Effort versus submission.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. Um, Submission, this word has a different quality than what usually people put on the other end of effort, which is surrender. But they're really not. The essence of what we're talking about isn't different. It's not different.
Right.
Submission is the same as surrender. Um, but some people might have strong feelings about submission because often this word is used in the context of like a deity, like submit to God. Yeah.
Or it can imply weakness.
Of course, yes. But actually this is the ideal state for
Yes.
realization. Complete weakness, complete hope. That's why I said give up hope, you know. Um, and it's also why utter failure is conducive to realization
Mm,
because you feel completely hopeless and you see yourself as weak, completely weak, as in hopeless, right? You can't do anything. Um, and this condition is the is ripe for realization, and it's ripe for um, uh, insight, of course, and it's ripe for like um, in a different kind of context, contact with the divine. Because only when you are um, that weak, that hopeless, uh, that scared, that are we willing to ask, you know, or to give up ourselves and ask for help, you know, to give up our own effort and say, I can't do it anymore. Uh, it's not, and then there's something about that giving up, this self effort, the giving up that um, illusion of self uh, agency or power, you know, individual power that allows one to realize the higher power, to submit to it, to admit that I'm nothing, and the higher power is everything. So I'm not my problem anymore. You take care of it. That's what you say to God in that state, whatever you feel is best, let that happen. I have no stake in anything anymore.
mm.
That's submission to reality, submission to God, and surrender to a higher power.
I, I love this questions and these answers there. Um, just two more. Presence versus absence. And I can remember, in my practice, I just want to be present. That was sort of my goal. I want,
Yeah. It's kind of a funny one to project out there, I have to say. Um, so as you know, I think this is a false duality. Um, and this is, of course, true of all these dualities, like um, enlightenment and unenlightenment, and the truth and untruth, or whatever we project out there, and our lack, like fulfillment is projected out there and lack inside. Um, those are all false dualities. And so um, the real question, the question of presence versus absence really touches upon the fundamental question of what are you really? Are you this transient mind that comes and goes, in which you could be absent, for example? Or are you that which is ever present, which has never been absent?
Mm.
If you think you are your transient mind, and if you think you are your transient body, you will ever be striving to secure territory for that mind and body, or to become present, or to be present, because it comes and goes. And so that struggle will go on and on as long as you cling to this view that you are an individual mind and body. But if you see that you couldn't possibly be anything other than reality itself, that which is ever present, and that the mind and body merely come and go within that, then you're never absent. That consciousness that is reality itself, that foundational, ever present, non personal
Hmm.
consciousness is, and you see, in order to realize yourself as that, on some level, you have to give up yourself as an individual person. You have to let go of the belief that you are your individual mind. Because how else will you realize that you are without limits if you cling to this limitation?
Your answer reminds me of that quote at the retreat on the wall, which was something like, unless you are not at home, God will not be able to find you.
Yeah, right, right. If you another way of putting it is if you entrench yourself in the individuality of the mind and body, uh, you you will not be able, and then not only entrench yourselves there, but then often we build armor around that as well. We fortify it. Like I said, we try to, and we try to expand our territory to secure it, because it's constantly a threat. But yeah, if you give up, if you take down defenses, take off your armor, uh, and open yourself to um, if you give up that individual view, then there's the possibility you will realize this larger view, which isn't a view.
The views are absence.
The viewless view, the
Viewless view.
yeah.
Okay. The last thing I wrote. And this is not really a n- knowing you don't know.
Yeah, this is very so this isn't a all the other ones were dichotomies, right?
Yes, this one
Now you're just saying knowing you don't know, and I will say to that, yes. Yeah. Yes. Yes. Knowing you don't know is very important. Um, and not in the sense that most people will imagine it, which is the in the context of projecting something to be known, the thing that you want, something that you want to know out there, and knowing that you don't know that, whatever it is,
right.
that's that it's not that situation. It is it's more, yeah, knowing that um yeah, just it's more knowing that it's just knowing that you don't know.
Well, and it
And
goes back to the knowledge that
yes, it
any
speaks of
any
the same, the
yeah,
knowledge, knowing that you don't know with regard to knowledge opens up emptiness for you.
yes,
Um, and especially if you really, really know it well that you don't know.
yeah. And what I will say about that is it sounds scary maybe, but it's
Yes, because
actually very comforting.
if it's complete, if it's complete, yes, it's the most comforting thing in the world.
Yeah.
If it's partial, it can induce anxiety, fear, anger, uh, all the negative emotions,
Mm.
um, because this um, like this it's like contact with spaciousness, that the sense that nothing can be
Yeah.
pinned down, or that there is absolutely nothing to hang on to. If you tell that to people, many people interpret that as kind of scary, or they could get mad about it. They say, no, there is something to hang on to. You're wrong. Um, uh, uh, People can have all different kinds of reactions, but if you really see that there is nothing to hang on to, it's the most wonderful thing in the world. The
Yeah.
most it is, as I think wrote in my book one time, like being wrapped in the arms of God. Nothing can go wrong. Absolutely nothing can go wrong.